I woke up feeling optimistic about Missouri and Vanderbilt, against Vanderbilt and Bo Prabula specifically. So let's talk about why and some basketball too right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball with a live edition of Locked On Mizzou for you. I wanted to do something a little different, a late Missouri basketball game last night. Got a lot to talk about on that one. Want to take your live questions here on YouTube as well. Plus, I think Missouri, there's a simple fix that I think can improve the Missouri secondary going forward the more I think about it. Plus, I thought Annor Boateng was really, to me, he was the headline last night. I think he's a really important player on this Missouri team. I want to talk about how he looked the part. But you know what? Before I start the program, I do need to remind you today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. But you know what? I woke up today just feeling optimistic about this game. I feel like getting an ugly victory, quite honestly, over Auburn in a tough place to win. You saw what that victory meant to Eli Drinkwitz after the game. I saw, of course, the usual naysayers and trollers online are saying stuff when Drinkwitz jumps up on the podium and is pumping his fist after winning the Auburn game. You see the usual stuff like, well, you'd never see Nick Saban do that after beating Auburn. Okay, great. Congratulations. I don't know what to tell you there. All I can tell you is we all saw the 2022 game down in Auburn. Eli Drinkwitz called it the most painful game he's ever been a part of. So if that was a little bit cathartic for the coach there, I'm not going to throw any shade. But regardless, obviously a really bizarre start, an unusual start at the very least. Missouri's season scheduling-wise, 6 straight home games, plus a bye to start the season. Weird enough that Missouri made a road trip to Lindenwood in fall camp to actually take a real road trip, as it were, about as real as it was going to get anyway compared to the SEC. So I just think getting that monkey off Missouri's back, not only that first road game for the Tigers, but for Bo Prabula as well. Listen, Auburn has had a brutal season so far. Zach Blackerby, I'm praying for you, buddy. I really am. But that is a talented team, especially that defense, a defense that held down Texas A&M, by the way, to, what did they tell them to, 16 points? I think that's right off the top of my head. Let me just check that real quick here as we are live on air. Yeah, 16-10. A&M, over Auburn. The undefeated Texas A&M Aggies scored 16 points on Auburn at home, by the way, in College Station at Kyle Field. So that Auburn defense is nasty, and they've got some real talent on offense too. Cam Coleman with a huge drop in that game, unfortunately, but he's a heck of a player. The point is, no matter how they got it, I think getting that victory, the classic, as I said, it was a 6-point victory, but it's the classic, as my dad likes to say, I'll take a 1-point victory type of game. The fact that Missouri got it on the road, I think that just gives the whole team, it lets them relax a little bit, especially how they performed on the road last season. A lot of those guys, well, they were on the team last year when Missouri lost a heartbreaker against the Gamecocks and, well, got thrashed on the road a couple times at Texas A&M and at Alabama as well. Again, I just think Missouri getting that monkey off their back, Prabula having that experience of having a full road start there. And he was under siege a lot in that game. Still ended up making some plays, in particular a play where I thought he did a great job of buying time against an all-out type blitz. Bought just enough time to get Kevin Coleman the ball on a 3rd and long that Missouri absolutely had to have. So I just think that maybe Bo Prabula early in the season when he was getting some of those tight window throws into the seams, maybe that was sort of what's the opposite of a blessing in disguise? Well, I think it may have been that. It may have been fool's gold a little bit because Beau Pribula has a good arm. I don't know that he has a Sam Horn type of arm, for example, or whoever, the Patrick Mahomes type of arm, where he can just throw the ball into the tightest of windows. Well, Pribula was able to do that a few times earlier in the season, and maybe that made him overestimate what he could do in those seam spots. I think maybe Pribula in Missouri should be trying to throw the ball outside the numbers a little bit more, especially when there's one-on-ones on the outside. And for as good as Missouri's running game is, as much as I think Vanderbilt would wisely focus on that Missouri running game, there's going to be times when you have Marquise Johnson and Donovan Olubade on the outside, one-on-one. I continue to think Missouri has not used Johnson enough in the deep game. Now that we have Donovan Olubade as well on the outside, a guy who can high point the football and just is flashing really special traits here as a true freshman, I think Missouri has got to lean more into trying to get explosives outside the numbers there. Plus, Josh Manning, I thought, had his best game as a Tiger against Auburn last week as well. So along with those three guys that I just mentioned, I haven't even mentioned Kevin Coleman, Brett Norfleet. To me, the weapons are there for this Missouri passing attack. And I just think that Pribula is still a guy who has not very much experience at the quarterback position. So to me, getting that big road victory, being able to celebrate that thing in the locker room, that's got to be a real boost for everyone's confidence, including Pribula, I would think. And again, just a cathartic result for Missouri. I've got to think everybody's got to relax a little bit, maybe breathe a little bit easier after that Alabama victory. I don't know. I just am kind of feeling a big game for Beau Pribula coming today. I'm starting to feel confident about this Missouri offense that maybe this is the day where they start to take off a little bit. Again, I just think all the weapons are there. I think all the talent is there. And I don't know. I just woke up feeling confident. What can I tell you? You want to overanalyze it or underanalyze it, please, by all means. Well, let's take some of your live comments as well. Chad says, real talk for a second about Mizzou basketball. Student section being moved further away from the court is dumb. Something needs to change there. I don't know is that what happened, Chad? Has the court been moved far? Has the student section been moved farther away? I know there was a row sort of taken out behind the baskets there, a few rows maybe. I didn't know if that was an exhibition game thing. I assumed it was. I don't know. I'm not ready to analyze the crowd here yet, but I'll tell you this. I am ready to analyze some Missouri basketball. That was I don't want to overanalyze an exhibition game, of course, and I'll get into why in just a little bit. But that was an encouraging start for Missouri, especially one specific player. Annor Boateng, to me, maybe the most important or pivotal guy on this Missouri basketball team. And I got to say, so far, so good for Annor and the Missouri Tigers. So I do want to talk some Missouri basketball coming up here in just a little bit. And, of course, more on Vanderbilt and Missouri as well here on Mizzou Vanderbilt Game Day. Plus, I want to get to more of your comments on this live edition of Locked On Mizzou here on YouTube. But I tell you, I also got to tell you about Quo. And you know what? One of the tools that helps make a big difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. And here's the thing. If you're a small business owner, any type of business owner, if you're missing calls, well, you're leaving money on the table. When your leads call you and you're not there, they tend to move on to the next one. So that's why you need something like Open Phone. Quo, I should say. Their built-in AI agent, a total game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep businesses moving forward even when you're off the clock. So that's why more than 90,000 businesses trust Quo. Again, formerly Open Phone, now called Quo. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's Quo.com/lockedoncollege. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. You can even keep your existing number for free. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. And yes, of course, FanDuel. It's NFL season, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. You can put down and bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Put down a bet that's $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today and get started. All right, folks. Annor Boateng looked really, really good last night for Missouri basketball. And the reason I think he's so important, I just think that it's obvious that Missouri has two of the best players in the SEC on paper with Mark Mitchell and Anthony Robinson. That's a heck of a start to have a power forward, a versatile forward that Mark Mitchell is, and a point guard, a lead guard. So what do you need also? Well, you need some wings too. And I think Sebastian Mack, we kind of know what he is from his time at UCLA. Of course, heck, maybe Missouri and Dennis Gates and his staff can get his shooting to be even better. It seems like Dennis Gates and his staff, always there's a guy or two on the team who raises their three-point shooting 5-10% in a season or so, whether that's Kobe Brown or Sean East or whoever it is. Missouri kind of has a magical formula there. And hopefully, not only was Annor Boateng knocking down shots from the outside impressively, but I thought just as important, and obviously outside shooting is as important as it's ever been in modern basketball. But to me, Boateng is a guy who obviously was a really high-level prospect. The reason for that? Well, just look at him. He's 6'5", athletic, and thick. And guess what? At times last season, it just didn't seem like he necessarily knew how to use his body. He's a true freshman. That's okay, by the way. Well, to me, I just noticed a change in Boateng already, and that is the plus of playing what was certainly a weird game. Heck, 9 o'clock. It was tough for this old man to get fired up for a 9 o'clock game, I'll be honest with you. But the great thing about playing this weird exhibition game is obviously Kansas State is a very real opponent. So physically, skill-wise, everything else, that's a great matchup to give you a gauge of what you're going to look like in the SEC, what you're going to face in the SEC if you're Boateng in Missouri. So that isn't fool's gold how Boateng looked yesterday. I thought his body control, the way he used his size yesterday, kind of bullying guys at the time, getting into the paint and finishing as well. Really, really impressive stuff from Boateng. Again, against a team that should translate, that production, all of that stuff should translate in the Southeastern Conference for sure. I just thought Missouri overall, you don't want to overanalyze this game, of course, because here's the deal. There was a lot of, well, hey, give me a new 5. In other words, there was just a million guys played in that game. Second half, it was about a 6-point game with 10 minutes to go, and you saw Missouri's Aaron Rowe and Nicholas Randall, the two true freshmen out there, and which is great. Fine. I'm glad that Missouri played all the guys that were available in the game. By the way, Trent Burns and Trent Pierce were both unavailable in the ball game and did not dress out. Didn't actually hear what the deal was with Trent Pierce, actually. I haven't checked my Twitter feed since last night, so apologies to that. Somebody in the comments will probably have that information for me here in a little bit, but I assume nothing major there for Trent Pierce. The point here is that, well, Missouri played a bunch of guys and played them in some unusual circumstances, played a whole bunch of different lineups, and Kansas State did the exact same thing, by the way. So take the result with a grain of salt. How good is Kansas State? How good is Missouri? I'm not totally sure. By the way, Jerome Tang, I did notice this. He said that, hey, he thinks Missouri's going to be pretty good. I'll say this. Missouri is really, really big. And if they can knock down shots, if Annor Boateng is going to be this good all season, that's a really big deal. It just is. It just having that kind of talent, his talent pay off is going to be a massive deal for Missouri. And by the way, Sean Phillips looks like he's every bit of what it was advertised too. He's kind of like Josh Gray in one way, in that when you have him defensively and on the glass, he's a huge plus there. But unlike Gray, and really unlike most people in this league, my goodness, he is a Shaquille O'Neal almost like finisher inside. That might be a little hyperbolic, but you know what I'm saying. Last night, all the book on Sean Phillips, according to his teammates this offseason, was, when Sean gets it near the rim, he's probably going to dunk on somebody. I think that's what Luke Northweather said this offseason. Well, Luke, you were definitely on to something, because, again, Phillips was finishing on grown men last night from Kansas State. Missouri was not playing Marathon Oil or Directional School from Delaware or whatever it might be. That's a real opponent. And Sean Phillips is a guy who, to me, looks like kind of a classic SEC 5 in a way. One of those guys who, especially when you're going on the road against him, seems to just get every rebound, and just dunks everything around the rim. When he gets an offensive rebound, is just a general menace in the paint. So while Phillips is certainly, unlike the rest of Missouri's options at the 5 position, doesn't look like a jump shooter or anything, but just offensively, the fact that he is such an incredibly strong finisher at the rim and appeared to have good hands, by the way, around the rim too. Boy, that's a massive plus for Missouri. And not only that, Dennis Gates has said that Phillips is probably the most athletic guy, explosive athleticism, we're saying, like just jumping, obviously, is what we're really talking about here. Well, that jumping ability, that actually, people talk about stretching the floor with shooting, of course, spacing the floor. Well, you can space the floor vertically as well. In other words, by throwing the ball up in the air to a guy like Phillips, you can now throw the ball 2-3 feet up in the air and actually expect him to finish that play. Well, that spaces the floor in a different way, too. It stresses your defense in a different way is the main point there. So Phillips is a really interesting option, and he really looks like a beast. I'm excited to watch him play. Jaden Stone looking like a good scorer, by the way. The only thing as far as, hey, it's not all a bed of roses at this point in the season for Missouri. I'll say this. I think, again, Missouri is huge when they want to be. They can be absolutely massive. The starting lineup they had with Javon Porter basically playing small forward. I mean, Mitchell at the 4, Phillips at the 5. That is a huge team. Plus, Missouri's guards are all pretty big, too. T.O. Barrett being a great example of that. So Missouri has a lot of upside defensively on this basketball team. Execution-wise, I'm still a little bit skeptical. I still felt like Missouri gave up far too many easy layups and too many open three-pointers in transition and at times, scrambling to try to turn the ball over, that type of deal. I will say Anthony Robinson did a pretty good job, I thought, for the most part, of avoiding fouls and being his usual menace defensively. But defensively, again, I want to see what Missouri looks like. Played a ton of different lineups here, of course. So take everything you saw with a grain of salt last night. But again, just to recap, my biggest takeaway of all the takeaways I just gave you there was that, man, Annor Boateng really, really looked the part there. So I found that to be incredibly promising. And you know what? Let's talk more about Missouri football. I teased a quick fix, or at least maybe something I think Missouri can do to help out their safeties, help out the secondary, that back end of the defense, something a little bit of a quick fix, I think. I want to talk about that here in just a little bit and more on the Missouri-Vanderbilt game, plus some more comments coming in from the watchers and listeners as well. But you know what? Before we get there, I do have to tell you about Mazda, because Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. And you can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls with all-wheel drive standard. In every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. And like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It is Mazda. Move and be moved. So one thing Eli Drinkwitz mentioned a few weeks ago about Missouri's secondary is he said, we have bad eyes in the backfield. And I think sometimes the Missouri cornerbacks, I was putting it on the safeties earlier, and I have to say the more I talk to other people who know defense better than I do, the more I look at it better. I think the Missouri corners have more of a part in this than maybe I initially realized, especially in terms of helping out the safeties. So especially when Missouri is in a cover 2 zone, for example, when the cornerbacks are really, they're playing the flat, essentially. They're playing close to the line of scrimmage, a flat zone that is, say, 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, more or less, just to give you an idea. So in that scenario, the safety importantly has the back end. So what you need to do, in my opinion, especially after talking to people who know defense even better than I do, these cornerbacks need to do a better job of rerouting those receivers at the line of scrimmage. Because here's the thing, when your eyes are in the backfield, when your eyes are looking at the quarterback, well, you can be like Marcus Peters. Hey, remember Marcus Peters if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan? Well, he was the ultimate I'm going to have eyes in the backfield guy. And there was one season where he had 7, 8 interceptions, that type of deal, and a few of them taken back to the house for a touchdown too. But eventually the word got out on Marcus Peters, and, well, his days of being in the Pro Bowl were pretty short, relatively speaking. The point here is that when you have eyes in the backfield, yeah, occasionally you're going to jump a route and guess correctly and take one to the house. But you're also going to guess wrong a lot. And most importantly, for my point here, when you're looking at the quarterback, well, you can't jam the receiver at the line of scrimmage. You can't reroute him. You can't make that receiver where you want him to go. You see, there's a difference between defending a route and challenging a route. The difference is if I'm just defending a route, well, I'm just kind of running around with the receiver and kind of hoping that I can keep up with him. On the other hand, if you're challenging a route, well, now you're forcing a guy to either go inside, force him to go outside, and now you're limiting the amount of places he can go effectively, more or less. And plus, your safeties and corners, in my opinion, should always be communicating and saying the safeties should really be telling the corners, hey, I got you here. That means you can push him inside, push him out, inside or out, that type of deal. So that's the simple thing I'll do there, because I'll tell you this Missouri front 7, front 6, whatever you want to call it, the Missouri defensive line and linebackers, I think those are absolutely for real, and I think we'll continue to see that. Hopefully, Zion Young, Damon Wilson, and company will really be able to hassle Diego Pavia today, for sure. Darren is predicting 36-27, by the way. He also thinks BEAU and Hardy will show up today. I tend to agree with you, Darren. I'm getting good vibes as I woke up here. Carson says, I don't know that Mizzou screwed themselves with the start of the schedule that they have, but not having a road game until Game 7 certainly do them any favors. Our guys didn't seem prepared. Well, no matter how much they were prepared or not, I still think that, as weird as that start to the season was, going down to Jordan-Hare Stadium, I love doing that, going down to Jordan-Hare Stadium and actually winning that game, no matter how ugly it was, no matter if you thought we deserved it or we got lucky or whatever, the point is a win is a win, baby. So we'll take it, and I think with it in your back pocket, that's just more belief that Eli Drinkwitz can sell to this locker room. I think that's a huge deal, not just of course in the standings and in the scorebook, but on the psychological, on the psychiatrist's couch too, if you will. Carson also says Brett Norfleet has the height and size to be an NFL tight end, and he's a really good blocker. Where do you think he ends up going in the draft, either this year since he's eligible or next? Well, you know what, Carson? I think Brett Norfleet needs to play an entire healthy season of football before we start talking about the NFL for him. Tight end is not as brutal of a position as it was, say, in the 1990s when I was a youngster growing up on football. But it's still a pretty brutal position. And Travis Kelce is obviously showing you can play a long time, especially if you're not lined up on the end all day, every day. But again, if you're not going to be an inline tight end, you've got to be really, really special. Can Brett Norfleet be that? Maybe. I think I love his talent. I really do. But he's got to prove that he can play at least an entire season and be healthy before we start talking NFL, in my opinion. So hopefully Brett gets, knock on wood, Missouri's had really good fortune so far, and with injuries, hardly anybody other than Blake Craig and Sam Horn had those unfortunate injuries in week 1. Other than that, hey, how about a shout out to the Missouri training staff and everybody who's involved in the weight training staff, everybody who keeps these guys strong and healthy. Hey, great job so far. Obviously some good fortune involved there too, but that's good stuff. Carson says lower leg injury for Pierce. Not many details. Doesn't sound like anything serious. Well, yes and no. Lower leg injury. Well, if he just turned his ankle in practice or something, hey, no big deal. He'll be fine in a few days, I'm sure. I don't know if it's an actual foot injury or something. You know how I am with foot injuries, especially for guys who are 6'10 plus. Start to get a bit nervous. That's for darn sure. But you know what? I should be nervous about this Vanderbilt game, but like I said, I woke up feeling confident today. What can I tell you? So thanks for joining me on this live edition here of Locked On Mizzou. Appreciate all you everydayers hitting me up in the comments here. And you know what? I have to say I'm debating on whether I'm going to go live directly after the Vanderbilt game or if I'm going to do it on Sunday morning. I'm kind of thinking numbers-wise I might do better on Sunday morning. I don't know. We'll just see how I feel. Again, hit the old notifications bell on YouTube. Subscribe on audio. You'll be notified when the show comes up. I promise you, you're going to get one. That's for darn sure. So regardless of when you get me, you're going to get me. That's for darn sure. So until then, I am John Miller, and thanks as always for listening to Locked On Mizzou.